Now we're going to take a look at how to work with word problems in point-slope form. So our first example is Marty is spending money. Spending is a key word. At a rate, rate is another key word that we talked about last time we had word problems, of $3 per day. After 14 days, he has $68 left. That looks to me like an ordered pair. It's a set of information that go together. And then we have a question, but before we can answer the question, we have to use the information we have to write an equation. So our first step is to determine the rate. Well, that keyword rate gave us some information. But before we saw the word rate, we had another keyword of spending. If you are spending money, it is going down. It's decreasing the amount of money that you have. So our rate or our slope is negative $3 per day. Using our rate, we can also determine the units for our point. Remember, rate is change in y over change in x. And the units on our rate were dollars per day. So that means the y value has a unit of dollars, and the x value has a unit of days. So when we set up our ordered pair with those pieces of information we noticed go together, it'll be 14 days and $68. Now we have our slope and our point, so we can put this into our point slope form. We have y equals m x minus x1 plus y1. Substituting what we know our slope is negative 3. You can drop the units once you put them in the equation. The 14 is our x-coordinate, so it's going into the asylum with the x, and it becomes opposite. And 68 is our y-coordinate. It's going outside, and it stays normal. Once we have our equation, we can answer the question. So the question is, how much money will he have left after 20 days? So if he continues to spend at the same rate, days was our x-coordinate, so we're substituting 20 for x and solving for y. Using order of operations, we're going to evaluate what's inside the parentheses first. 20 minus 14 is 6, plus 68. Multiplying our negative 3 by 6, we get negative 18 plus 68. And finally, combining our like terms, negative 18 plus 68 would give us $50. So if Marty continues to spend his money at a rate of $3 per day, he will have $50 left after 20 days. So one thing that you should do always is make sure that your answer makes sense with the context. So if you hadn't caught that keyword of spending and you thought your rate was a positive 3, it shouldn't make sense to you that Marty would have more money after 20 days when he's spending his money. So we should have less than the $68 after he's continued to spend his money. Something I bet you all wish Park would do is host a math family fun night. The first year, there were 35 families, so that looks like a point. And the third year, there were 57. That looks like another point. This time we are not given our rate, so we have to calculate our rate with the 2 points. Now in order to figure out which order they go in, since we don't have our rate to help us with the units, we have to remember that if time is an option, it's always our x-coordinate. So our first ordered pair was after the first year, there were 35 families. And after the third year, there were 57 families. I'm going to calculate the rate using change in y over change in x. We haven't reviewed that since we got back from break, and some of you may prefer finding your slope that way. So change in y. To get from 35 to 57, we added 22. And to get from 1 to 3, we added 2. So our slope, or change in y over change in x, was a change of 22 families per 2 years. 22 divided by 2 is 11 families per year. Substituting that into our point slope form, y equals m x minus x1 plus y1. Our slope is 11. Using the first coordinate because it has smaller numbers, the 1 is our x value, so it becomes opposite inside the asylum. And 35 is our y value. It stays normal outside the asylum. Now we've got our equation, so we can use it to predict how many families we think will show up in the 5th year. Year was our x value, so we're going to substitute 5 for x and solve for y. Using order of operations, we'll simplify what's inside our grouping symbols first. 5 minus 1 gives us 4. Next step, we'll multiply the 11 by 4 to get 44. And finally, we'll add our 44 and 35 to get a total of 79 families. Here's your U-try question. Identify whether you have a rate and a point or 2 points, and then you can determine which method you need to use to set up your equation to answer the question.